Hi, I'm so happy to be talking again with Rachel Fleischman. We did an episode a couple weeks ago, a month ago, at the beginning of Shelter in Place about what was going on and what people were needing. And here we are a month later, and the conversation is changing every day. So we wanted to have another one. This time focusing specifically on anxiety because people are experiencing a lot of that. So we wanted to continue the conversation as mental health providers, talk about anxiety, talk about what we're seeing, how we work with anxiety, and anything else that comes up. So thanks again, Rachel, for being here.
Yeah, I can't believe I was just thinking it has been a month.
Yeah.
A month that both flew by and a month that took its time.
Mm-hmm.
And we did talk about anxiety, and so much has changed. And gosh, what an opportunity to really be in the therapist chair and be in our most human experience that we are in this too. So I'm delighted to talk a bit about anxiety. And I loved your question. We were sort of chewing on this a while ago, which is like, what is it? Like, what even is it?
What the heck is anxiety?
What the heck is it? So I took some time and I'm going to answer that and get right to our questions.
Yeah.
And maybe even give us and other folks some relief. So some good news, because we need some good news. Anxiety disorders are the most common psychiatric problem.
They're
extremely treatable. They're extremely common and the most treatable. I didn't do any of that systemic work, but they're the most treatable. And what's interesting is worry is a series of false questions. This is a little quote that I'll say that again. Worry is a series of false questions that are best ignored. So it's a bluffer. Anxiety is bluffing you all of the time. So what anxiety is thoughts that then create physiological experiences, about 18 different physiological characteristics, none of them tremendously pleasant. Pounding heart, sweating, change in body temperature, large pupils,
agitation,
gut feeling less than comfortable. Nothing that's really fun.
No.
But hang on, we can make it okay. It's a series of physiological change. And also, as I mentioned, sorry, I'm going to look at another note that I took because I just thought this was so brilliant from Chad Lejeune. I just love looking at all these brilliant teachers of ours and saying, yes, 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 these things are so true. And if I can find it, I want to share it with us today. So worry is the thinking component of anxiety. It's future focusing, not focusing on the great joys of what will life be like now that, things are a little different, let's just say, and the great joy of community. But, oh gosh, what will the new normal be, as we talked about that expression the last time, etc. Worry is also, and anxiety is also this, certainly the worst case scenario. So it's this, wow, anything could happen, Laurel. The world could end. And you know what? I'm going to focus on the worst thing, world ending. Oh my gosh, what about the children? So it's like, if there's this, almost anything can happen, there's this ability to go really deep into more worry, which then creates more physiological experiences, which we talk about.
Yeah.
Anxiety sensitivity, which is deep discomfort with. And the way that we work with that, I'm just going to kind of slide into all the things, is educate our clients, sit with them like a coach and like a teacher. The more we educate people about anxiety, the less bewildered and afraid folks become. So people will come in presenting with anxiety, actually thinking, crazy, I'm weak. This will never go away. I've seen many women who have had, and men who struggle with flight anxiety, people who were afraid pregnancy would be unbearable for them, people who've had fears of elevators, and people who've just had the basic everyday garden variety generalized anxiety. So the more you understand what's happening in your brain, your body, and your mind, I think that when people can recognize, I'm okay, this is uncomfortable, and I'm okay, something changes. So the way that I work with anxiety is like a teacher, like a coach, as I said, but it's helping patients change their relationship with anxiety rather than just here are all the techniques you can use so you don't feel those terrible feelings. I really want people to change the relationship because I think that allows for recovery that lasts.
Yes.
Rather than I'm
Absolutely.
staving it off right now.
Uh-huh.
It is more uncomfortable in the short term of doing some things that may feel, well, scary, because with anxiety, we go into avoidance. It's a very
Yep.
generous.
And then you start seeing people drinking or, doing things that will in the short term soothe the anxiety, but ultimately over the long term escalate it, which is not what we want.
Right. In the short term, absolutely, they're great. But in the long term, there's massive suffering. So I teach people to have a better tolerance of distressing feelings, so it's not focusing on changing the thoughts, but going, oh shoot, anxious is me right now.
Yeah.
I'm in it. I can live with this. This won't take me down. Because unfortunately, the physiological symptoms, I think, are so unpleasant for some people that there is the fear of the fear, which we call anxiety sensitivity.
And
it will
reinforces the original anxiety. So, and then it just makes the snowball go faster and get bigger. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's also, there's such shame. I wasn't thinking I'd share about that today, but if we could move from the shame of here's what is, people, here's what I'm working through, a friend saying it to another friend, a spouse saying it, somebody just announcing it, good God, it's around us. And this is maybe the first time that some people feel they can say, I'm anxious, you're anxious, we're all in it. What are you doing with it?
Or on the other hand, people feeling like they need to be strong to manage other people's anxiety. If they're sheltering in place with someone who is typically more anxious, and then they feel like they can't make space for their own because they really need to care for their anxious partner or roommate or child or whatever it is. And there is enough space for all of our anxiety. It's not actually as big as it feels in the moment. Yeah.
And I think it's amazing how when we have a few wins, the anxious person who's worried about worst case scenario has a break from the news, imagine that, or actually researches some good news or actually goes out in nature and has a break, start to feel better, which then creates less avoidance. Oh, I don't really need to drink. I can be with the feelings.
Yes.
I wrote something down which I thought was really interesting, which is that there are 3 characteristics that highly anxious people have. And one is the sensitivity to the first trigger of the whoosh. Oh, there was the whoosh. Oh boy, there's my heart. So you got to have that sensitivity.
We all know that feeling.
Otherwise it's just a whoosh. And what I say to people is, can you be curious about the whoosh? That's where the great surprises come to me is, oh, there it was, that funny feeling. I had a client who used to have some throat responses to anxiety.
Which is very common.
Very common. Anything in the GI system is.
Half of our neuroreceptors are in the gut. So the fact that there are so many GI and kind of just abdominal responses to anxiety makes physical sense. We get the muscle tension, and then also the neuroreceptors that are responding to the chemical indicators of anxiety, of course. Yeah.
Each time she expected to have a bad throat day, the closing up, the discomfort, shouldn't eat spicy food. And when we talked a little bit about embracing that, some days will be that, and many, many days won't be. And that she could tolerate it, the sensations lessened and lessened to it being almost a thing of, oh yeah, that used to happen. So there's this physiological arousal, triggered by this fear circuitry in the brain, right? So number 2, this is interesting to me, their disproportionate focus on the future. So you're anxious and you have the whoosh, and then it was, oh my God, here's what this means. Always there will be coronavirus. Always the world will be strange. Oh, let me think of an even worse future. My elbow hurts, that's corona. My throat, definitely, that's, So there's gotta be that worst case. And then finally, which goes to the second one, that absolute tendency to catastrophize. And that's where I throw humor
Mm-hmm.
And technique-wise, Laurel, I get a real kick out of saying, look, I don't want to have too much levity around your discomfort. It is not pleasant to be in anxiety. But
Mm-hmm.
if you write about it, if you change some of the words, we may have talked last time about the rhyming exercise where you say, I'm afraid I will, die poor and alone. You might write, I'm afraid of sitting with my butt on the phone. You take it into the silliest place,
Mm-hmm.
because actually, if we really sit with anxiety and ask it, where will you really go to the utmost? It's shocking. It's, I will be nothing on the street with big hairs coming out of my chin and no teeth, and no one will love me, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the humor, I have also found that to be really effective. And thinking about how humor and laughter functions physiologically, it actually initially tightens further the abdominal,
It's right.
the abdominal muscles, and then releases, which is
Well, that's that
actually,
release.
yeah, the release it's kind of an involuntary progressive muscle relaxation, which if you Google that, there's so many videos, which is a great way to combat and self-soothe when you're feeling anxious in the moment.
Yes.
I love
Yes.
that. Also for helping people sleep. There's really there's no negative to doing progressive muscle relaxation. So
No.
yeah.
And I hope that, I know MBSR is very effective, the mindfulness-based stress
Mm-hmm.
reduction, the 8-week
Mm-hmm.
course. I think every client, just take that course. If not, listen to a recording. Right now in this moment, everything is available to us from our home,
Yeah.
which is a phenomenal blessing and opportunity and completely overwhelming. So
Mm-hmm.
people can pick and choose. I don't know if you're finding that there's so many things available to us as clinicians that it's
Yeah,
like,
and I think that that's actually increasing people's anxiety. I know sometimes when I see,
bingo.
oh my gosh, this course is 90% off. I've wanted to take it for years. I have to
Right.
do it now. And this one too. And oh my gosh, there's so
For
much
the
I
same
have to
day.
do before quarantine is out. And then I'm like, wait, no, that's really not what we're doing here. And I've been saying to people that we should really be approaching quarantine like a second semester senior taking a class pass fail, because
Yes.
really we just have to pass. We just
Right.
need to
Well
survive
said.
and go on to be in the world as it exists when quarantine orders are lifted, right? It is
Yes.
not a productivity contest. It is
That's right.
not, you're not going to
That's
have to show your neighbors that you now have a 6-pack and have mastered the art of
right.
French cooking. That is really not what we're doing here. If you
Thank
feel the
you.
pressure to do that, let me relieve you of that right now, because it's not going to serve you.
Listen to this woman and make her words your law. Write it down. It
Yeah.
will not serve you. And someone can try. Take 3 courses, burn out, get tired, take the
Right.
fitness challenge for a few days,
Mm-hmm.
but the great antidote to anxiety is, can you stay in the present? Can you stay actually in this moment on purpose, without judgment, and with curiosity?
That
And
is so
curious.
hard. That is
Yes,
so
yes,
hard.
yes, yes.
That's a reason that mindfulness is a lifelong practice. You don't master mindfulness. You practice it for the
I
rest of
love that
your life.
you
Right.
said last time that for you, meditation/mindfulness it's like meditation on the go.
Yeah. You can do
Right?
it. You
I
can
liked
do
that.
like very quick moments.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we are getting opportunities. If I want to have a moment on Instagram just to look at the colorful photos of my friends and students in New York, instead, I get all these big thought leaders, meditation teachers, psychotherapists, gurus, and God, if you believe in him or her, live right now offering a free course. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes.
So
It's overwhelming.
we shut it
Absolutely.
down.
Yeah.
We shut it down.
Well, and I wanted to say that, we know there is very well done research on factors that influence anxiety during pandemics. And granted, we haven't had a pandemic quite like this one, but there certainly have been national, international health crises that have allowed for research on this.
Great. I
We
mean, great, but
know, yeah, I'm glad we have the research so that we can be
absolutely.
informed that the number one thing that will drive your anxiety up during a pandemic is being on social media. getting your
Absolutely.
news from Facebook, all those, that is not a great place. First of all, we know it's not always reliable. And also it trends towards sensationalism, fear mongering,
Yes.
and it kind of creates this contagion of anxiety that is really difficult to shake off, and it's really not
Yes.
necessary. So the research says that a social media is not where you want to be if you're an anxious person. And television also can really
Oh, yeah.
increase your anxiety. And people say, well, I want to be informed. Absolutely. Let's keep you informed. We don't want you to be, to feel like you're in a bunker, like with no contact.
Yes.
But what we know is that getting your news from a print source, or a source that has a print
Yes.
outlet, so a newspaper, or a very reputable online source, that is actually going to keep you informed while keeping your anxiety as low as possible. The reason for this is that television stations, they have to keep you engaged. They have to keep you from changing the channel. So the way they present things is going to be heightened. It's not that it's not factual, but you can say something that is factual in a very sensationalized, dramatized way that creates a lot of suspense, or you can lay out facts very simply. And that tends to be the way that print resources do it, to be more factual rather than sensationalist. So I just wanted to let people know that there's
We
research
just
behind
froze on
this.
my end. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
Laurel, if you can hear
Yeah,
me, we
me
just had a
too.
little freeze.
Sorry about that little freeze. We're all dealing with technology. Anyway, just to close off what I was saying about print media is really where you want to be informed and not spike that anxiety.
And with print media, a la New York Times, if you turn the page to the art section, the science section, the food section, or the crossword section, you get a gift. Because they are working so hard right now to envelop us in beautiful TV shows and film. Each time it's a little thing that's different. Like if you have 40 minutes and you just want this, or 8 hours and you want that. I'm really enjoying, because we do get Monday through Friday New York Times, and I have a choice, don't I, in the morning of where I go with it. And I'm grateful that it's a reputable piece. I love what you said about TV. Shame on all of that sensationalism with the news. And hopefully folks are not, I say hopefully, watching the news. I'd love to ask you a bit about something we can do if we work with you, or just something we can know about EMDR that could be really interesting for because I know it can be done virtually. I know you can, if you wish, do it virtually, or something similar to it. And I'd love if there's anything you want to share today about something you're excited about regarding that. Because it's good stuff and it works.
Yes,
it works.
It does work. Well, I think that there's kind of a pre-question to that, and that really is around, there's so many different kinds of anxiety. We experience it in different ways. So I kind of think of three categories. One being like panic, which, people that have panic or anxiety attacks, some clinicians like to differentiate between a panic attack and an anxiety attack. I don't really care. Physiologically, they're similar. And it's just this kind of rush of overwhelming fear that can be paralyzing. And, ultimately it can make people want to just stay home, ironically, and not leave the house if they're getting these panic attacks. Then there's a kind of generalized anxiety that we all experience to some degree. And I think to a certain level we need. If we don't have some amount of fear or something that is motivating us to think about the future, to plan ahead, to create contingency plans, to think about like, oh, okay, I need to come up with an alternative to this one thing I was going to do in 6 months in case I'm not able to do it. It allows us to be more functional human beings. So I never want to paint anxiety as a unilaterally negative experience. I know that without anxiety, I wouldn't be the professional that I am. I wouldn't be the friend that I am. I wouldn't be, kind of prepared and organized the way I am. Because if it's just Hakuna Matata all the time, we have no motivation to grow and to progress through life, right?
Absolutely.
So the generalized anxiety, there can be a tipping point where it becomes paralyzing.
Absolutely.
But I would try to depathologize how we think about our anxiety, because it can be a gift. Absolutely. And then I think that there's a flavor of general anxiety that I would call existential anxiety, which is going through the roof right now, because it's this kind of like, wait, do we matter on this planet? Our life is so brief. We could be gone any second. And that existential anxiety, you're going to work with that very differently than you would panic attacks. It manifests differently. It has different cognitive distortions that come with it. So you wouldn't want to treat them the same. And then the final piece of anxiety that I'm thinking about right now that is pertinent to EMDR is a phobia. So a specific fear, and it could be a specific fear around a virus, or it could be a fear of flying, or it could be a fear of, certain foods, whatever it may be. And EMDR can treat those phobias, often very effectively. Now, I'm not going to make wild promises and say that anyone who does EMDR will be cured of their phobia. It's not 100% effective, but it is highly effective. EMDR can be done online. I have not branched out into that yet. I'm hoping, and I'm actually thinking that when we are able to start meeting in person and seeing clients in person, that I'll actually just start with people who are wanting to do EMDR, because that can be done with a mask on. There's not a whole lot of talking. There's some talking, but there are long periods of silence, and it can be done pretty safely in person. And so obviously we're all going to have to think about what it looks like when we are coming back together in person. But that's kind of my thinking now, is doing EMDR just to start when we go back into the office. I've seen all kinds of things be treated very effectively with EMDR, and it's thrilling to see. Fear of flying, fear of certain foods, fear of choking, fear of a virus, as well as other traumatic events. Some of our phobias are based in a trauma or in a traumatic event. Some are not. Some are cumulative, and you don't really know why you're afraid of needles, but it's where we are. You may not have had a traumatic experience, but that's just, we're wired that way. So yes, I would say, to answer your question, EMDR is fantastic at working with phobias. I've seen sometimes some of the quickest turnarounds as EMDR goes in working with phobias. And that's really exciting. So, and if anyone doesn't know what EMDR is, it's a very well-researched treatment where you either, I would guide you moving your eyes back and forth, or I have these things that buzz in your hands alternately, and I also have headphones that beep. And basically it's stimulating both sides of the brain so that both sides of your brain are engaged in processing something more like a typical memory rather than a traumatic or fearful memory. So actually kind of restructuring how the memory is stored in your brain. And it's awesome.
So cool.
Yeah.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
It is awesome.
You asked for a specific technique or skill that we can use. And without going into like a whole lot of detail on it, because there are, plenty of practitioners who do this, I think that if we think about something really positive and just something where you feel totally engaged and you can tap yourself like this, I think that your anxiety will come down. Just think about, whether it's surfing or cooking or dancing or whatever your thing is. And you kind of give yourself, and you give yourself that bilateral stimulation, it can bring anxiety down.
Yeah.
And safer and healthier than a drink.
Yeah, right. It's so much healthier than a drink. Let's see. Any last nuggets that you want to share?
I loved your piece about curiosity. And often when a client is highly anxious in a session with me, or a friend is highly anxious, or I'm highly anxious about something, we all have our moments. I ask someone to reframe the experience. This is information.
Yes.
It's not good or bad.
Yes.
This is information your body is giving you. What is the information? And it could be, this thing really matters to me. It could be, I love this person so much and I'm afraid for them that they're going to be sick. It could be, it could be, oh, I really need to go to sleep. I'm so tired and my body is just kind of spiraling out. And if you can take a step back and not judge the anxiety and get curious about what it's trying to tell you, then ultimately, I think the anxiety goes down much faster.
I absolutely agree. And I think sometimes there's the sweetest sense of self-compassion that can come with noticing what the longing is, or the fear is, or the whatever is that's troubling us inside of that anxious thought, that anxious idea. Right? There's actually this amazing place of tenderness that comes up, which is just lovely. I think about the right now of the world, and boy, there's so much to say. Maybe we'll do that another time, just kind of a couple of thoughts. But there is a real regression I think some of us are going into, which is clients of mine are talking about loving some of the snacks they loved as a child, some of the films they loved. And I think that's so wise, letting yourself have that. We're all going through some level of grief and loss, anger, denial, bargaining, depression, acceptance, every which way. And my curiosity is, where are you right now in it? And can you be with it? And you know about me, and I know you share this probably in a very different way, but I need to move every day.
Yes. Me too.
Somehow, and yes, there's room in all of our homes to move the body. If someone wants to really change the channel on anxiety, it does not have to be big and punishing and wild, but moving the body, oxygenating is wonderful. It just creates a total cascade of good stuff, happy neurotransmitters. I obviously want to acknowledge if someone's anxiety is very severe, if panic attacks are happening enough, there is medicine, which can be taken short-term.
Absolutely. And I have seen fantastic results combining therapy and medicine and exercise and nutrition and, other lifestyle change. I ultimately believe in a very holistic approach. You can't just do therapy and expect everything to change. There may be some change.
We're just doing anxiety meds without therapy.
Right.
That is that's where I get a little prickly. I know that we both have so much more to share, and so let's leave them wanting more, unless there's any more nuggets that you might have, just to honor time. If there's anything else that you want to share.
I mean, it's just get curious and know that your anxiety is not, and 99% of the time, it's not an emergency. It feels like it, but it's lying to you. Just like Rachel said, it'll lie to you, make you feel like it's an emergency. It's not. It's just highly uncomfortable, and you can tolerate it. You absolutely can. It's just hard.
And each time you tolerate it and you have a win, there's less anxiety sensitivity that you won't be able to tolerate it the next time. And I think that's where the beauty is having those wins and realizing we can be, even as anxious creatures sometimes, we can be, and we got to have more compassion, because I think there's a lot of cruelty people ladle upon themselves for having anxiety in the first place.
It comes from the shame.
That's right.
Well, I think that's a good place. We'll always have more to say, but we can do this again. So thank you so much, Rachel. I'll put links to your website and mine in this post, and we'll keep going.
Absolutely.
As we all will.
Lovely being with you again, Laurel.
All right. Thank you. Bye.